Alright folks, hope you're doing well. Just a quick video. Yes. I had a conversation last night again with the person who likes to argue. Yeah. Well, he likes to win. Is more the point. He sees a conversation more as a fight rather than as an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to win. So it's like, right. And yeah, there were lots of arguments. There were lots of yeah. But it's quite useful because afterwards you just go to unpack it. Yeah, with God, you just say, okay, I need to unpack this. So can you help me? Yeah, because that's the thing. Sometimes that would be the case with conversations. You need to unpack it. But yeah, there were actually quite few useful things in the conversation. Like we were talking about healing, and I was talking about how I believe healing will be done in the future, and it won't be done the same way. Yeah, because if you understand the point about healing, when Isaiah said, by his stripes you are healed, it means, well, his stripes are already done. So if his stripes are already done, then your healing has already been done. If your healing has already been done, then you just need to learn how to receive it. So me laying hands upon you does absolutely nothing. Not really. Not from a point of view of how do you receive healing. Me touching you doesn't do anything in that way. Your healing does not come through me. If your healing does not come through me, then my hand touching your body doesn't release the healing. Now there can be a connection between that could help the person to receive. Because if they believe that by the laying of hands people receive, then okay, that can help. But the reality is that isn't true. And so, Peter was saying, okay, so why did the Lord tell people to lay hands? Well, fair question, yes. One reason would have been because in that time, and not just in that time, but since as well, disease and sickness would have been counted as, I don't want to touch that. And there's a lot of times when people are like that. Oh, I don't want to go anywhere near that. It's disgusting. And the Lord was basically saying, we're going to love you more than we fear what you got. Yeah, certainly in those days, leprosy was a more common thing than it is now. And, well, actually, I don't know if that's true because maybe parts of the world where leprosy is still very, very common. But, yeah. Depends on where you are, I suppose, whether that would be a true point or not. So anyway, part of it is, to a certain degree, and it is to a certain degree for show. Now, of course, Peter jumped on that point, that for show, that, okay, the Lord was doing things for show. No. For show means he's basically saying we're not like those. Those people, they won't touch you. But we're not afraid to touch you. That is, to a certain degree, for show. Of course it is. Another reason why the laying of hands is important is because those people who are coming into understanding of spiritual, if it helps them to believe that healing comes through you, then laying of hands is a useful tool. But again, does it help? No. Another point that there was an argument was on the point of getting the name of the demon, because obviously the example with Legion. Yeah. I mean, the point I made is that if we come across Legion, we don't need to worry. We just tell Legion to go. He has to go. We don't need to be concerned about him. Oh, but the Lord had to get his name. The Lord had to do this, had to do that. No, he didn't. He didn't have to. Yeah, it's like another point he was talking about, where the disciples came back and said they'd prayed for this person and someone with epilepsy. And the Lord said, well, some of the things have to be dealt with prayer and fasting. St. Peter said the Lord had to deal with things with prayer and fasting. Where do you see that? Where in the Bible do you see occasions where the Lord came across a situation needed healing and he had to go away and do some times of prayer and fasting first? No, it didn't happen. The reason why the Lord said for them is because they came across that situation and couldn't deal with it. So what does prayer and fasting do? It gets you focused on God. It gets you focused on God, because God helps you, especially when you're fasting. God helps you to fast. God helps you to deal with that. And therefore, you're trusting in God helping you. So therefore, when you come to deal with that person next time, you've got more faith and your faith is built up that God will help you. So that's the purpose of that. So therefore, did Yeshua need that? No. But it was a possibility of winning an argument for Peter. So he brought that one up. Yeah. He then brought up, where the Lord said, when two or more of you come together and you pray for anything according to my will. And I said, okay, well, what does it mean according to my will? Because, that's because he said, what's the most important thing about that? And I said, well, he said my will. I said, well, what does he mean by that? And then Peter started talking about, well, his will is that we minister to people, we preach to people, we bring the word. That's his will, and his will is that we heal people. Okay, so when talking about when you come together and pray according to my will, you're saying, the Lord was saying that when you heal people and you preach, that's praying. What? But this is the thing, arguments. When you want to argue, you can put forward ideas. Anyway, one of the first things I did after that is said to God, do I do this? Do I do this? That when I speak to people, when I go to the church I go to, when I speak to people afterwards, which I do I do that? Because if I do that, I need you to help me. I need you to help me to do better, because I don't want to be doing that. That's the point. I'm not sharing all this stuff about conversation to say, how bad the other person in the conversation was, because no, I was wrong in parts. He was wrong in parts. That's the reality. But when you finish that conversation, then it's important to go to God and say, okay, what can I learn from this? What can I do better? Because even the point, okay, if this person wants to argue, how can I be in that conversation and argue? Because obviously, if we're looking at scripture and we're looking at the point of the Antichrist coming and all of that, and the fact that people of God are going to be arrested and all this sort of stuff, we are going to come across clever people, or people that think they're clever, who are going to try and trap us in what we say. So therefore, okay, how can I learn to not fall into these traps? Because that's the point. Do I fall into traps? Yes, often. In these conversations. So I can learn. I can do better. So, okay. Because in the end, if I'm going to God about him, then I'm missing something here. It's always important to understand how how I can do better, because I'm responsible for me. I'm not responsible for anyone else. And in the end, if I want to point to Father, if I am having conversations and I'm failing in that conversation because I get offended, or because I say things in a way that is offensive to people, or I fall into traps all the time, then there is room for improvement, and I've got to focus on that. If there is room for improvement, then let's focus on that room for improvement, and let's try to improve, because that's the thing. It's about, yeah. And actually, one good thing about it was, because he was talking about the fact of the Great Commission, and one point I got annoyed in the phone call, and again, I may be very guilty of this myself, was that at one point he was talking down to me as if I was an incredibly baby believer who had no understanding of scripture at all. And I felt that was incredibly disrespectful. And I did say, excuse me, can you not do that? Now, the reality is, do I do that? Yeah, possibly, yeah. So, yeah, I have to go to God and say to God, can you help me? Because if I'm doing that, I need to not do that. Whether I do it on video, whether I do it face to face, it doesn't matter. If I'm doing that, then, I very much need to do better. So, yeah, this is what I say about how to deal with offence and how to deal with all that sort of stuff. Yeah, if you make it about the other person, you don't grow. The way to grow is that you look at yourself and you decide you want to do better. You decide you can do better. Because, one point I made one point we were talking about, or something I made in that conversation, is that we have for years in our society been encouraged to look down upon people rather than to look up upon people. And so therefore, it makes us feel better pointing at others, saying at least we're not as bad as that person. Yeah, was I one of those people? No, for a while, I imagine. Certainly for times, yeah. But now I have an understanding that I'm supposed to have the nature of my Father. And if I'm supposed to have the nature of my Father, then I'm looking up. And I'm looking up at someone who doesn't fall into traps and doesn't get offended by stuff. Yeah, is not someone of many words. So doesn't boast on his knowledge or his understanding. And do I do that? I think so. Sometimes, yeah. Yeah. That is possible. Yeah. There is always room for improvement. There is always room where you can do better and do so much better. And so focus on that. Because in the end, we need to grow. And one of the best ways to grow is to do that. Yeah. So I wish you well. You take care. God bless. I'll speak to you soon. Be a blessing. Be blessed. Enjoy. Bye-bye.